Disciple. I'm here with David Ajala.
Yes, sir.
And so appreciate your time. And you're going back to the States.
Yeah.
So we quickly just said, let's just get you while we got you in the UK. Because I'm sure we'll get you in the States as well when you go back. But first thing I wanted to ask you is, how did you get saved?
Okay. So, I grew up, I was born in Nigeria, went to America when I was about 8 years old. So we're living
So he's
in New
born
York.
in Nigeria?
Yeah.
Do you still remember it?
Yeah, a bit. Just very vague memories.
Okay.
Not many things.
Yeah.
But, my brother was actually the first one to share the proper gospel with me. So we
Okay.
grew up in a Christian home, as
Yeah.
you would say. But, my mom wasn't saved at the time. But I always, I had this brother who was much older than I am. He's 14 years older. A lot of people don't know that. He's much older than me. But he was living in the UK at the time. So I'm living in America, growing up there. And he would visit every now and again. So, like, I remember him visiting probably twice over a span of 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So one of these visits, I was about, I would say 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up in the inner cities, New York, New Jersey, rough areas and all that. So by this time we're living in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So he's visiting and we're on the bus going to my mom's job. So he started sharing with me about Jesus and everything. I remember hearing it and weeping. Like, I was on the bus crying. So I felt something.
Mm.
But no sooner did he leave to go back to England, I was right back on the streets just doing what I normally do. It's like it just went in one ear and out the other. There was no transformation.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I heard the gospel properly.
But would you say that growing up, you grew up with your mum and dad,
Yeah.
or just your mum?
No, just my mom.
So
So,
you-
up till even the years before we went to America,
Yeah.
my dad wasn't really there.
Okay.
So mainly my mom, and my sisters.
Would you say you grew up in a religious environment, meaning going to church or knew about church, or
No,
even though you
yeah.
didn't know the gospel, but there was none of that?
No, there was a bit of that. So I
Okay.
would say somewhat, because we had spells where my mom would start taking us to church.
Okay.
But it didn't last long.
Yeah.
We were never committed churchgoers.
Okay.
My mom would do things like getting us to read the Bible, and she'll say, "Yeah, if you finish the Bible, I'll give you $10 or something." So we just skim through and just earn $10 over a span of, I don't know, weeks. It was just something she knew in the back of her head that she needs to get the word of God in her kids.
Yeah.
But she wasn't saved. So it
Okay.
was just one of those things. So we we weren't overly religious, but my mom would have called herself a Christian.
Okay, I get it.
See?
So your brother witnesses to you.
Yeah.
But then when he goes back to and when would that have been? What year would that have been roughly?
So that would have been roughly 95, maybe?
Okay.
No, 93, 94, somewhere
Okay.
around that area.
Okay.
So hold on, I would have been about 13, maybe 95, maybe 94, somewhere around that area, 1994.
Okay.
So we had moved to New Jersey, living there, rough area, going to this school. I went to Eastside High School. So after he left, this is the high school I went to.
Okay.
I don't know if you heard the movie Lean on Me, Morgan Freeman, old school movie.
I've heard of it.
That movie was made about Eastside High School because
Oh,
the
really?
school was so bad. Like, the kids would jump teachers and fight them. There was always a fight, So that was the school I went to.
Okay.
So that's the environment that I kind of grew up in. So, not having any male figures, I was just on the street with the guys, just doing just learning from them.
Yeah.
Drug dealers on every corner.
What did you think about him when he told you he's a Christian and he's witnessing to you? Did you think, oh, that's a good thing, or did you think, oh?
I don't think I was even mature enough to think that way, because
Oh,
I
wow.
was just a kid.
Okay.
I just know it. I remember crying.
Okay.
I remember really feeling like, wow, my sin, and but it didn't resonate enough.
Yeah.
So now fast forward, I ended up going to uni, and it was during the end of my sophomore year.
How old would you have been?
I was 20. I was just
Okay.
about to turn 21. So my sister had gotten saved a month before,
Yeah.
and she
Is
started.
she in America as well?
She's in America.
Okay.
So she's immediately older than me.
Okay.
She's my immediate older sister.
Yeah.
So she started telling me about Jesus all the time, and so obviously I'm in uni, I'm partying, I'm just doing my thing, and her saying these things to me, we would have arguments, but I remember just feeling like, okay, God, I came to a realization there is a God. So God, if you're real, then let me know directly what you're saying, because I'm not going to hear from anyone else. I was prideful. I had that kind of attitude. Like Moses claims he went to a mountain and God spoke to him. Who am I? Why should I believe that? I could go up to a mountain and claim God spoke to me. That was my thinking.
Okay, yeah.
So she's witnessing to me, and I remember just, bit by bit, she was chipping away for a good month. And I remember, man, just making that decision. It was on spring break. I was home for spring break. And God just dealt with me one morning. I never forget it, because the day before I was smoking weed, I was high, and then into the evening, and then the morning, I wake up at like 5 a.m. I can't really explain it to you, because till this day I don't fully understand what happened. God started speaking to me, and it was so profound that I got up and I wrote myself an email of what I felt God was saying.
Wow.
And it was one after the other. I wrote myself 13 emails that morning. I wish I still had the emails. I don't know where those emails went, but I'll never forget, I wrote myself 13 emails of just like 1 or 2 liners of what I felt, that was the profound word of God that was coming to me. And it was completely against everything I thought, everything that I thought I stood for, and it was just pointing to Jesus, which is what my sister had been pounding at, and no doubt my brother had been praying about, even though he wasn't in my life at the time. So that's how I got saved, and I went back to uni, and then everything else just had to change.
So here you get saved outside of the church environment.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you went to church, heard an oracle. So where did you start going to church?
So as soon as I went back to uni, I just knew I needed to be in church.
Okay.
No one told me that.
All
just
right.
knew you want to be around other Christians.
Yeah.
So I found a church. I was on campus one day and I saw this guy. He was, handing out stuff like for a Bible study. I was more excited to meet him than he was to meet me. And I was like, hey, what's this? He's like, yeah, Bible studies. I was like, yeah, you could use my flat. So he started using my apartment to have the Bible study. We had a couple of people come over. I invited friends and things like that. And so he naturally told me about the church he belongs to. So it turns out he's like the uni minister or ministry kind of guy.
Yeah.
Guy was in his mid-30s at the time.
Yeah.
Dave Hatfield, never forget him.
Okay.
So the 3 people I contribute to my salvation for certain is, Peter Jala, my brother, Kemi Lopez, which is my sister, and this guy Dave Hatfield. So he took me, man, and I started going to this church called Christ Cultural Center. It was different. Church filled with predominantly white people. It's different, but at the same time, that didn't matter to me, because all I cared about was that Jesus was here. They loved Jesus. I wanted to be there. So that little by little, man, just my surroundings started changing. My friendships started changing. And yeah, so that's how I started going to church.
So this guy, I mean, it's amazing when you think about it that, there's times when God will tell us to, evangelize, and we go on the streets and people can be like, oh, that's not going to do anything.
Yeah.
But God had already prepared this guy.
Yeah.
And it's just like, no, if you go, I've already prepared.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes what we do is we try to figure everything out.
Yeah.
But why? How's that going to work? What's this going to do? And here is a guy who's by your own admission, you say, I was more excited about it than he was.
Yeah.
And God could be saying to us, listen, if you will go out, there's people I'm already working with. And we see it in, in Corinth, when in the book of Acts, when God says to Paul, I have many people in this city, man.
Yeah.
And that's every story that when I speak to people about how did you get saved, what's going on, there's always like this thing where you realize it's God doing it.
It's God, man. And this is one of the things. So even I remember when I think about my salvation story, it's encouraging in a sense, because we have to get this picture of salvation, that it's not just you meet someone and you give them this powerful witness and then boom, they get saved and you're Paul the Apostle. Like you said, it's God doing it.
Yeah.
So many times there are a few situations where it's one person involved in your salvation.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's different people that God uses at different times.
Yes.
So for me, the first person was my brother. The second person was my sister, who started really witnessing to me. And then the third person, me going right back to uni, was this guy that God brought in. And so he met me on an outreach. In his view, or in his mind, it's like what we see when we go out on outreach sometimes and we give a guy a flyer and he comes to church and gets saved. That's what we think it always works like, but that's not the case. The truth is, it's God using different people to chip away at the human heart.
Yeah.
And then they get saved. It's usually not just one person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. No, I definitely agree. So, okay, so you get saved, you start going to the church. You said you allowed the guy to use your home for like a Bible study.
Yeah.
And you was bringing your friends to it.
Yeah. Yes.
What was happening with them? Like here you are now, you're saved, bringing your friends to this thing. But before you were smoking weed and.
Yeah, it's crazy. Funny enough, actually, when I was in uni, I had this rule that I didn't smoke weed during the semester.
Okay, so.
This is crazy because I knew it kills your brain cells. So I only smoked off season, if that makes sense to anybody. So I didn't smoke. But yeah, I had these friends. And in uni, I was kind of like the ringleader, to be honest with you. So we'd be doing madness out, doing partying and all that kind of stuff, getting up to all sorts of things, right? But I noticed that when I got saved, this was one thing that it wasn't easy to lead them in just doing. And that was very, interesting to me. You talking about guys, you make them do silly things. Go and do this. And people would just do it and we'll just have fun. Things that could get you locked up, you know what I'm saying? But now you get saved. So we were living in a 4-bedroom apartment. One of the guys was someone we didn't know that just happened to lease with us.
Yeah.
2 of the guys, I knew them. But I remember, inviting, they knew I was having the Bible study and they'll come and they'll listen. One guy, he didn't really stay much. The other 2 I was working with, it was just hard. It was hard to get these guys to hear the gospel. Only one of my roommates really listened, and he would kind of, Laquan Hargrove, never forget him. He'd kind of listen, and he was there. He was very a hard shell. He's from Newark, New Jersey. So he's kind of comes from the same background. He knows what it's like to be on the streets, and so we were very close. So when he saw me getting saved and changing, he was kind of like, all right, let me just hear this out. The other dude, Dwayne, he was a friend of mine from high school, but he was kind of just sloppy grace kind of guy. Like, this is the grace period. We could just do what we want. So it was interesting. So, we had the Bible study, but I those out of that group of friends, I didn't really see much of an impact besides Laquan. Another group of friends outside of that didn't come to the study, a couple of them actually got saved. Just, and me telling them, hey, guys, you need to do some powerful things happen while I was in uni. God gave me a vision, and there was this big party we were gonna have. These guys still used to party even though they call themselves Christians.
Yeah.
So I told them, man, this Saturday morning, God gave me this vision of bloodshed at this party, and I saw people coming out, running, blood on their shirts. So I wake up, I did my devotions, got in the car, and I drove to my friend's house. I said, guys, I want you to all be there. So they were there. They're like, what's going on, So I told them, I said, this is what I saw, guys, don't go to this party. So as it happened, my ex-girlfriend, she didn't listen. She went. She was part of the crew in a sense. 2 of the guys, Roger, Gerard, listened. They didn't go. Another guy, Jamel, he went. So what happened is, a few hours into the night, I get a call from my ex-girlfriend. She's like, hey, you got to come get me. There's blood everywhere. People are running everywhere. Someone had a knife, and a fight broke out at the party. And I went. We drove there. We picked her up.
Wow.
And Jamel was somewhere around. So when that happened, it was such an impactful thing on all of them. Because it's like, God told you this was going to happen, and it happened that same night. So these 2 guys, they get saved. I baptized them in a pool, just a pool outside of one of the apartments. It was funny, man. I didn't even know what I was doing, but I did it,
Powerful.
And then the guy, Jamel, Roger, Gerard, they're all still saved to this day. 2 of them are married. They're there.
Amazing.
Serving God.
That's powerful, man. Yeah. So okay. So give us the journey of. I guess so you've been married. I was going to say, give us the journey of coming to the UK, but you got married before you came to the UK anyway.
Yeah.
So how long you been married?
12 years.
12 years. Okay. And how many kids do you have?
3.
3 kids.
Yeah.
And how did you meet your wife?
We met in church.
Okay.
So when I went back to New Jersey, at some point visited England. God told me to move there, came back, didn't work out. Then I was in church, in our family church, if you will, that we were all attending in New Jersey.
Yeah.
It was about a church of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
But I met Raquel, and we kind of started being interested in each other.
Yeah. And
exchanging glances. Then we start talking and all that. And before you know it, man, I was asking her father if I could date his daughter.
And did she grow up in church?
No.
Okay.
So she had gotten saved a couple of years back.
Okay.
And she had come to the church. She had powerful salvation story, and her parents got impacted by that. They start coming. So we ended up meeting at this church after she was there for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so and that's in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the journey of you coming to the UK?
So before I got married, when I finished uni, now I'm saved, right? So I always knew I had this brother who's out there. He's a pastor. Hey, let me find out what he's up to. What's I know the gospel has now captured my heart. What is it that had captured his all these years
ago? So before that, let me get an understanding. Before that, you and him weren't talking like regular?
No.
Okay.
No. Didn't grow up together. That's why it's so funny when people talk about our mannerisms and all that. This is just genetics. Because we didn't grow up together. We didn't have each other in our lives. You know what I'm saying? We didn't talk often at all.
I didn't know that.
No, not at all. So I always, so I said, hey, Mom, let's plan a trip. So we planned a trip to visit London. I was here, and I just got to meet the guys in church and see what God was doing. And I was like, yeah, wow, young men who are like me, my age, they know what it's like to, to want God, but at the same time, every other part of you doesn't.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I like this, And I was just captivated by the camaraderie with the men, like just having that accountability. And so anyway, while I was here, God spoke to me, and I realized I need to move to England. So I said on the plane ride back home, I said to my mom, I said, Mom, God's calling me to move to England. And she looked at me and she goes, me too. So I was like, okay. So we went back and we started making preparations. I had a job, I sold my car, made preparations to leave my place of work.
How would you have been, how old was you at that point?
So at that point, I would have been about 23.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have been about 23. So I had visited, because it was 2005 that I visited, and then I made the move in 2006.
Okay.
So, yeah, man. So my mom sold her house. We moved. So we were here a while, but I was kind of ill-advised. I didn't do proper research. Just thinking as an American, maybe I can come here. It's not like that. You got to get the, immigration and all that. I had never done anything like that as an adult. So I learned the hard way. I ended up having to come back to America 7 months later. Now I'm vexed. Like, God, why is it that you told me to do this? And look, nothing's worked out. I've spent thousands on visas, been denied. I've prayed with fasting. None of this is working. So God, what are you doing? And I'm applying for visas from America, getting denied. So anyway, to answer your question, it was at that point that I had finally settled that, all right, you know what, maybe God doesn't have England for me. So let's see, maybe it's later. So I just started going back to church as normal, because I'm there now. I thought I was going back to America for like a week or two, but I ended up staying there. And then I started going back to my old church. Yeah. And then that's how we met, me and Raquel.
Wow.
And so it was just kind of like God knowing, wait, you're moving too fast, son. I want to give you this blessing first. And then you're going to go. So I met my wife, and we hit it off. We talked about a lot of interesting things and real talk, and we got married. And then I told her straight away when we met, hey, this is the vision that I have. Like,
Yeah.
God has called me to move to England.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be, you know, a disciple. I want to do something for God. And she signed up for it straight away. So she
Wow.
knew, yeah, you know. So yeah, so we got married with that already in the workings. You
Okay. So you come to England.
know? Yeah.
What would you say was the big culture shock of coming to England from America?
Everything's smaller. So your fridges are smaller. The roads are smaller and tighter. Everything. Apartments are smaller. That was the
big thing.
Big thing, yeah.
It's funny because I remember going to America in 1983
Yeah.
as a kid. I think I was about 8, and no, it would have been later than that. I was maybe about that. See my dad there, and that was the total opposite. Everything was bigger.
Yeah.
Everything just looked massive.
Yeah.
Everything is bigger. What about So you come into the church. So would you say it was really, now that you look back, you think that God's plan was that you could be discipled? Would it be the main thing that
I
you would
think
say?
so. Yeah,
You was in a good church. He was preaching well, but you came to the UK is where you really got discipled.
Absolutely. I would say 100%. That's it on the head right there.
Yeah.
Because, you know, without saying too much, obviously churches are different, right? And so there wasn't that element of discipleship in my life and in my church until I came over here. And I saw just, you know, it's just a completely different level. The accountability, the you know, the kind of arm in arm feel of, hey, we're going for this thing, you know.
Yeah.
There's opposition to stop a young man from just being a Christian and a man of God, but man, let's lock arms and let's go, you know. That element, that was it.
So you went to Kingston to pastor. You took over from Prazzini.
Yeah.
And at what point did you realize you was called to preach?
So it's funny. Shortly after I got saved, I think I felt some kind of call to preach.
Okay.
But it was completely undefined, completely, maybe even to some degree misguided.
Yeah.
Because I remember, like, when I finished uni, the sister I told you about who witnessed to me over and over, we were just on fire. So I remember going to her house and saying, hey, let's just go walk the streets and just preach. So I remember she's pushing her stroller. I'm just walking in the middle of the street. We're literally just walking random streets, and I'm just preaching. I'm just preaching, like, you know, whatever I was saying, give your life to Jesus, you know, and just talking about the message of the cross. But that was already like in seed form in my heart. Like, this message has to be proclaimed.
Would that been something that you was quite like that? You was quite expressive, or was that because that would be strange to some people to be able to walk down the street and just start preaching,
especially in New Jersey where no one's doing that.
So would that be something where you was always the type of guy that would do not strange things, but to be someone that was out there like that? Or would you say no, that's just the Spirit of God was on me?
That wasn't me. To be funny enough, when I tell people I grew up as a shy kid, no one believes me.
Okay.
I was actually a shy kid.
All right.
And then I didn't come out of shyness particularly because of salvation. I think it just happened around when I was 18. Somewhere around there was a switch.
Yeah.
And and I just started changing bit by bit, maybe as I matured.
Yeah.
But by the time I was in uni, I was already like the kind of guy that was, you know, I just lived life normal. I wasn't really shy anymore, but I wasn't out there.
Okay, so
see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So this is really the work of the Spirit inside of you.
Definitely, because I would never. That's not something I would do. It's weird. So I remember, that's when I had it in seed form. The idea that but I didn't even know it was called the call of God or God wanting you to. I just kind of knew the Spirit of God is impressing this upon me. I need to just do it.
Yeah.
So I remember telling my brother, I feel like, at this point we started talking a bit more. So I said, I feel like, I want to be an evangelist. So, but I kind of had that feeling already.
Yeah.
But when I came to the Potter's House, and then we were going to the Walthamstow conference in those days, that it started taking shape. The call of God started really taking shape. And I was like, okay. I know what God wants me to do.
I think that's the thing where the church really excels, is that because if you think someone like the Apostle Paul, he already had the call, but then when he meets the others, it kind of, they give him a bit of direction and things happening. He's not just out doing his own thing.
Yeah.
But they did not give him the original call.
Yeah.
And the church, I think that's something that's powerful, that when you get saved, God has to do something in you. If God ain't doing it in you, we can't do it in you. We can direct it, we can nurture it as the church, but we don't do it. We don't do the calling, man.
Yeah.
And if you ain't got it, then it's like I always say, it's like stirring coffee. It doesn't matter how fast you stir it. If you don't add the sugar, it don't get no sweeter.
Yeah,
it's just as simple as that. You need to have that thing in you. So you come to the UK. This thing starts to take shape in your life. What was the process when you was approached about Kingston?
So at that time, I was helping with the church. I was on staff, like pastoral helps, just helping however I can.
Yeah.
And so finally conference came. I had been doing that for a couple of years, and then conference came and he said, hey, there's an opportunity. I think at that time we were bringing Pastor Price back as the assistant.
Yeah.
So
when would that have been?
So that was 2012. So it was conference 2012. So Price was going to come back.
Yeah.
And they needed someone to take Kingston. So I was asked, and I simply said, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say was and obviously after you, Miles went in there, Miles and Sam went in there, and so through that, it kind of, I've met some of the key people that were there, and good little crowd, man. Good people. What would you say was the thing that you learned the most about pioneering? Because pioneering is no joke.
Yeah, it's no joke. There's a lot. It really builds you, man. It's just, I mean, I would almost do it an injustice to choose one thing, but when we talk about pioneering or trying to make disciples, right? One thing I learned, naturally people are drawn to you because of who you are and your personality. Yeah. God uses that, right? But one thing we have to be very deliberate about is pointing people to Jesus. Yeah. To make it clear that you are not my disciples. Yeah. You are Jesus's disciples. Yes. And so there needs to be that very deliberate effort from the person who's doing the discipling, whether you're a pastor or just a disciple yourself. You're discipling people. Yeah. You have to understand that they're going to be drawn to you because that's just how God does it. But you have to shift it so that the person that they're relying upon is God. Yeah. So the need of the disciple has to shift, or the dependency of the disciple has to shift from being on the discipler to being more and more on God. So yes. I would say that's something I've seen. It has a tremendous impact when it goes the wrong way. Yeah. They're not our disciples. Yes. They're Jesus's disciples. Yeah. I think that is that's the tricky point, and it's like clutch control. Yeah. If you don't get it right, you're either grinding it or you stalled it. Yeah. Because you're like, I'm not your disciple. You're not my disciple. Go sort it out with Jesus. Yeah. But they need something from you. Yeah. But then there's the overreach. Yeah. So, you definitely need the Holy Spirit. You need the Holy Spirit. You have to have that right balance. That's one thing I would say. And how long was you there for? So in Kingston, we were just under 4 years. So almost 4, 3 and a half and a bit. Okay. Yeah. And then you took over Hackney. Yeah. And then you became an evangelist. Yeah. So, and how long you been an evangelist now? So we started evangelizing so it's 3 years now. 3 years. 3 years. And then the next move, I was going to say the last move, but we can't say the last move. The next move is you and your wife are going back to the States. Yep. You're going to use Atlanta as the base. Yeah. Not to Jersey, but back to the States, but to Atlanta. Have you been to Atlanta? Never been to Atlanta. Oh, wow. Yeah, never been to Atlanta. My wife's never been there. So a lot of prayer went into this decision. We thought about pioneering again in New Jersey. This wasn't the time, both from the church's perspective and ours, the more we prayed.
Yeah.
So there's no real fellowship church in New Jersey. I mean, the closest one is like a couple of hours away. So
Where is the closest one?
I can't even remember the name of the town.
Is it in Jersey? Is the
It's
state?
in Jersey. It's in the state, but
Okay.
it's not feasible in terms of trying to be
What's
where
the main city? Is it Newark? Is the main city in Jersey?
In terms of an airport, yeah, there's
Yeah.
Newark. There's also Jersey City,
Okay.
which is very close to New York, so just across the river.
Okay.
So we thought about different things, but one, if you're gonna continue evangelizing or having the continuity of ministry, you can't do it from a pioneer church. That's not something, as I got advice, that's not something that would allow the continuity of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So we either have to find a leadership church or we simply have to pioneer. But the tricky thing is you don't want to necessarily mix a move like this with pioneering by force.
Yeah.
So we then started praying, okay, where can we go where we can continue to be, have the continuity of ministry? On the East Coast, really, the next place is Atlanta. It's not exactly on the coast. Georgia is, but Atlanta is there.
Yeah.
We know Pastor Carnegie very well.
Yeah.
He was actually very instrumental in us coming here.
Okay.
So that helped. And
Yeah.
talking to him, talking to Pastor Fred and different things, and
Yeah.
and so just we prayerfully took that decision. So we're gonna be there. We're gonna evangelize from Atlanta and see what God does.
Should be good. Be a good move for you guys. So the whole purpose of the podcast, really, or the main drive of it, is just real disciple. And when we talk about what is a disciple, what does that mean to you? Like, what is a disciple of Jesus Christ?
In simple terms, a learner.
Yeah.
A disciple is a learner. So as we've been told, a learner under discipline. But if you're going to be a learner, that means the first step is saying, I need to be taught something. I need to be taught this. So to make that first step of being a disciple takes humility. You got to have that humility to realize I'm a learner. I'm going to position myself as a learner. That means other people have something to teach me about Christ likeness.
Yeah.
Being like Christ, learning to be like Jesus, because that's the whole purpose, right? What are you learning? You're learning to be like Jesus, whether that's through the ministry that you're doing, if you're ushering, if you're cleaning, if you're doing work with the nursery and the kids. All of that is to shape you learning to be like Christ. So that first element is humility. And there are a few things that challenge that kind of thing in our generation, but that's what it means, is you're a learner.
Yeah. I like what you said, that you're letting someone else teach you how to be Christ-like. And I think that is something that you have to realize in discipleship, that Jesus tells the disciples to go and make disciples. He told men to make other men.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a God element,
Yep.
but there has to be a man element. And I think that, going back to what we said, if you don't have those two things, for me, I realized making the disciples is the hardest thing. Building a crowd is not. I guess it's still hard, but building a crowd ain't the hardest challenge for me. It's the discipling. It's one of those things that it tests you as an individual who's doing the discipling, and it tests the guy that's being discipled, or the woman who's being discipled. What would you say is one of, because you've pastored now and you've been a disciple, what would you say one of the, or whatever, not more than one, but the hindrances of discipleship?
Okay, so there are many, obviously, but every generation is different, right? I was talking with my brother about this the other day, but there's a shift now in how people think, and how the average young person thinks, and it has to do with the generation. So you know how you have generation Y or Z or whatever, baby boomers. You got all millennials.
Yes.
I realized that it's actually important to study the generations to some degree, because how they process life has a lot to do with your approach in discipling them. Now, this doesn't mean we change the formula. We use the same old formula because it works. It's been working for 2,000 some odd years, right?
Yeah.
But we kind of tweak our tactics with the same old formula.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest hindrances now is, you know, the average young person or the average person, because of the generation we're living in, they're focused more on being expressive than being taught. So nowadays everybody is a glamour person. Everybody is a movie star. You got your Instagram, you got your Facebook, everybody has a voice. You got your Twitter. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone. So it's harder to put yourself in a position of, actually, I need to learn.
Yeah.
I'm a learner. And so understanding that, we have to come at this culture and this generation in a tweaked fashion with the same formula. No one has all the answers, but I think that's one of the biggest hindrances, is that someone once said that this generation, they want all the glory of making an impact and having an effect and, you know, leaving an imprint on life, but they don't want commitment. They don't want hard work. Yeah. So you see the psyche of, I think how people think in general now is just way different than 50 years ago, 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And not needless to say 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's one of the hindrances, is just the general culture and mindset of the average person. I mean, obviously a lot of things have contributed to this. Fatherlessness, absenteeism. So even fathers that are there but are not present.
Yeah.
So that's contributed to this. So yeah, the average young person is coming, and it's like, you got to first win them. You got to show them you love them before you can challenge them about anything.
Yeah.
And to some degree, that's always been the case, but it's just a bit more highlighted now, because it's more like, this is my world, is how the average person is thinking about it. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think it's you think I grew up when there were no mobile phones. I grew up when there was no internet. I mean, it sounds mad. I don't feel like a ancient guy, you know, like some sort of Jurassic individual.
No internet.
Yeah, no internet.
I know what you mean.
Think about it. No internet. Like I remember when mobile phones came out.
Yeah.
When I got sent out, there was no such thing as social media. No, just sent out. I'm not talking about left school. Sent out.
Wow.
There was no iPhone yet. There was no apps. So you are reaching people different. I was saying to someone the other day, what I realize is, as I get older, I'm 47 now. So what I realize as I get older is, I'm at an age now where people a generation before me, let's say 20 years, because that's a pretty significant amount of time, I have an expression. So there's people 27. That's a big age. You know, you're a real adult at that age, and now have an expression. And what I realize is as you get older, you realize these people think totally different than you. And that's something that's always been around, but I've never noticed it. Because I've never been that far ahead of people that are in some type of capacity. Because someone at 27 can be in politics or in business or in these things. And I think as a lot of our pastors and the age that we're at now, where we're coming to terms with, hold up, there's a generation between us now, and we're gonna, like you said, we're gonna have to realize, wow, you really don't think the way I think. I will look at something and be like, how that makes no sense. That really makes no sense. But because we're a generation apart, and the reason why I say that is because that's what people thought about me. I remember older people saying that to me, because, you know, that's I'm of the generation when hip hop came out. You know, that's my generation. Hip hop came out in the 80s. When I was young, this music has come out, and older people, what kind of music is that? What are they doing there? Breakdancing, and you know, that made no sense to the generation before me. So every generation, and then before that, there was Elvis that came out, and the generation before, why is the guy shaking his legs and doing this stuff? And before that, and I think that's what we've got to process that. And the church has always survived. The church has not died; it's always survived, because we've got to be willing to listen to one another. And the younger have to listen to the older, and the older have to learn as well from the younger.
Exactly.
I think if you don't, then you will lose
Yeah.
something in because that's really the goal of it, discipling the next generation to take on what you've done. You know,
Yeah.
I'm at that age, like I said, I'm soon 50. 3 years time I'm 50. You know, that's you know, you start to get to those ages where it's like, well, who are you rising up? Who if the Lord tarries, what's after you? It's all well and good, you know, you served God in your generation, and I guess from your perspective, even more as a parent, where you're thinking, what's after this? What am I leaving? What would you say the biggest successes you've seen, whether you've done it or someone else has done it, in discipleship?
The biggest successes. Well, I have to reference the revival we were a part of in South London, because that was firsthand. You know, we saw droves of people coming in, young men, young women. Many of them now today are hooked up and married, and they're having kids. But we saw all these people coming in, and God transforming their lives, people becoming disciples, males and females. And now they're in church, they're solid Christians, and they're pillars. So in terms of what I've experienced firsthand, I would have to reference that. You know, the days where we saw that outpouring here in London, and you know, obviously we became a conference center and all that kind of stuff. That was, you know, that was really unique to see, and that's what we took out right into the field, trying to have that kind of experience. And one of the things to realize is, even if it's one person that God gives you, that you're able to make a solid disciple, you know, by the grace of God. When I say make, you know what I'm saying, God and man. But that's still a part of it, right? That's still a huge success. And so, you know, however much we're able to replicate what we've seen, as long as it's the real thing and someone has Jesus and they can, without you, make heaven their home and impact their world, their life, or those around them in their life, I think then you've had a success in discipleship.
Last question. Obviously you're from America, you're going back to America. People have a lot of opinions about America. I've been there many times, more times than I can count, literally. What as you look at America right now, what's your opinion on it? What do you see happening? Because we obviously get a narrative from whatever side you're more leaning on. But what do you see?
So, I mean, a lot of people have said to me when they've heard that we're going back to America, well, man, you couldn't have chosen a worse time to go back to this country. That's what people say to me.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, I think a lot of that, like you said, is just through the lens of what we see in the media. Now, I understand every country has its issues. America is kind of on the global stage, and everybody looks at what's happening in America. But I think by and large, what you see in the media is definitely overhyped. Me and my wife are talking about this all the time. If you just watch the news all the time, you'll just be thinking, nah, there's no way I'm going back to this country. But at the same time, when you look at people's lives that you know there, you just kind of follow, you just keep in touch. It's like, wait, it's actually not that much of a madness than people are making it seem. But America is in an interesting place in terms of its history. Like, just, it's polarized. There's just, you know, there's the right and the left, right? There's all this political tension and all that, manipulation and all sorts of things, misinformation. So all of that is very real. But at the same time, what we have to know as Christians is that God does some of his best work in dark times. So even though this may be a dark time, not just for America, but for the world, but maybe particularly in America, at the same time, we know that revival, man, God is doing amazing things that people aren't talking about. You know, I was reading the other day about how in California, there's this outpouring, man. People are getting saved. People are gathering on the beaches, in the park. To the point where the governor tried to put a stop to it, saying people can't meet, their churches can't meet in parks and all that. They can't meet in homes. So they start having all this opposition. But it's because God is still moving. You might see all this uprising and all this fear and tension and talk of another lockdown and all that. but we got to look past, you know, sort of a mirage, if you will. It's kind of like a smoke screen.
Yeah.
And we got to try to see with spiritual eyes. Hey, there's still this, you know, it's still a great time for God to do something and use our lives individually or as a church. So, so when I look at America, I see the issues. And, you know, thank God Trump is, you know, I actually am a Trump supporter. So, you know, people might think that's strange, but, you know, he's better for the country. His policy definitely outdoes his personality. You can't defend many things about his personality, but you just get what you get. You don't get upset, or you do, and it's up to you. But so in terms of politically, turmoil, all sorts, but I think there's a future. I think God is able to still make any situation to work out for his glory.
Definitely. I think the reality is, as a Christian, we realize that our foundation is not in what we see. It's in God. You know, what we build our life upon. This is all gonna up and down, isn't it? It's all gonna be up and down. You study history, everything goes in waves, up and down, and so that's good. Well, it's good to get your opinion on it. That's it. We've done, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And so you guys have your own social media, blog, vlog, whatever we call
whatever
it.
you call it.
Going
I don't
on.
even know what you call it.
What is it called again?
Cup of Real.
Cup of Real. And so you get it. It's on Instagram. I know it's on Instagram.
Yeah.
What else? Is it just Instagram?
It's on Instagram. We have a YouTube. We have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
And then we actually do have a YouTube channel, which we plan on, you know, eventually putting some stuff on. It's there. It's ready for us. But we just haven't started putting the videos there yet. But now we've launched a website as well. So the website now
so I'll put them all in the. I'm gonna put them all in the underneath the video. Yeah.
So the website's good because you know, it has a section called the Man Cave.
Yeah.
You know, so that is like where we just talk about everything to do with men and spirituality, finances.
Okay, that'd be good.
So we got sections on there about fatherhood, finances, and you know, I chose a couple of F's like that.
Okay.
That all are relevant.
Yeah.
You know, so the whole idea of Cup of Real is to have real conversations about real stuff from a Christian perspective.
Yes.
You know, as Christians, we deal with these real issues and real life happens to us.
Yes.
But here's how we look at it from a biblical perspective and not get caught up in the hype of everything else going on.
Very good.
That's the whole idea.
So if you send me that stuff, then I'll put it in the link below.
Cool.
So then people can find it. So David, man, thank you. We'll keep you in prayer. I'm sure we'll get you back on when you're in the States and back in your home country, so to speak. And we'll keep you in prayer. Keep us in prayer.
No doubt.
And keep doing God's work, man. Amazing testimony, amazing story. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you for having me.
Hey, peace.
All right.